Grab your favorite alcoholic or non-alcoholic beverage, drink responsibly, do not drink and drive, and join us for the latest episode of Why Complain When You Can Whine. Everything in this podcast is purely for entertainment and psychoeducational purposes only. Enjoy! Welcome to Why Complain When You Can Whine, making sense of the senseless. Join us as we attempt to make sense of toxic nonsense while drinking wine, or whatever beverage you choose. I am Dr. Jodi, licensed clinical psychologist in the state of California, and today I am choosing, I don't know how this tastes, but I love the name. Folie à deux.
Ooh, lovely.
Folie à deux. Do you know what folie à deux means?
No.
It is a shared delusion or mental illness.
Oh.
Yeah. It is, let me give you the exact, let me see if I can find it again.
That's quite fitting.
It is a delusion or mental illness shared by two people in close association.
Oh, interesting.
So like mass hysteria, kind of.
Right.
Two people. So folie à deux. And it is a Cabernet. And my cup says, paws off my wine.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
And that looks like a dog paw, but mine is a cat. So
amazing.
Whatever.
It's very sweet. Well, that's awesome. I am Brianne Burry, and I am a registered counselor, therapist up in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And this evening, I am drinking out of my big dumb cup. That's on Saturday Night Live, by the way. It's my Stanley. And it is not all the way full. It only has like this much in here. Of a beautiful collagen plus water mix.
You're making me seem like an alcoholic.
I know. And it's terrible because I always say that I'm going to have wine in my house the next time around. But I think I overdid the wine in my wine days as a smallie. So
okay.
I'm just
anything. You can have anything, that is fine.
I know. So I know we call it wine, but I'm just going to pretend like it's wine. Wine to water, water to wine. I'm just going to go based on that, but it's got collagen in it.
Why not?
Right?
I drink wine with my coffee in the morning. Not my wine, my collagen. I drink it with my coffee in the morning. Yes. And it is coconut vanilla flavored. So I really like it.
Yeah. Anyways, yes. But I said big dumb cup because you guys now have to go watch the Saturday Night Live stint on all the girls drinking out of my big dumb cup. And it's the Stanley. It's pretty funny.
My water is Tervis from Disney, of course. My Disney cruise in 2023. It says Where Magic Meets the Sea, and it's Nikki. I can't wait to get a new one. These are freaking expensive. They're like a Stanley Cup, and I bought it on the cruise.
And anything in Disney is jacked up like 80% because it's Disney.
But I use this every single day. I love it.
Well, I love it. So what are we talking about this evening, Dr. Lauren?
We're going to do a little Q&A. It doesn't have to be every single podcast, but if you guys send us questions, ask us questions, we will try to respond in a podcast. And throughout the years, I have gotten, obviously, a lot of questions about narcissist, NPD. When I say narcissist, I have to clarify, I am talking NPD, narcissistic personality disorder narcissist, not everybody throws that word around when someone is full of themselves or they're mad at somebody, he's such a narcissist, whatever. I'm talking about NPD narcissist when I say narcissist. Let's get that straight right now.
And to back that up, we're on a spectrum, right? So you can have somebody that has narcissistic traits, but full-blown NPD is at the extreme end and would be classified as a personality disorder.
Yeah, we can all have it at certain times. And it's kind of healthy to have it at certain times. That is how you get ahead sometimes. Not talking about the hurting people, not talking about the mind fuckery. I'm talking about just being egocentric and full of yourself sometimes. Like, damn, I look good today.
But that can be healthy narcissism. But I do agree when you say like level of success and the more driven, there has to be a level of insane level of confidence and admiration to get far. And so you do oscillate on the spectrum throughout life. But to have a full-blown personality disorder, you do have to meet a lot of the exploitive criteria, I think.
And it affects your social, emotional, and occupational functioning. Now, you may not, the NPD may not think it's affecting them because it's never their fault. They're the hero or the victim. However,
always
if their friendship history, their social history, their work history, it causes a lot of problems.
Yeah, it's pervasive
around them.
Yeah.
You had asked me once about the difference between someone that is egocentric and someone that is NPD. And what you just said is right there, is the pervasiveness. When someone has a personality disorder, it affects pretty much every area of their life because it is who they are. When we have some egocentric, whatever, it's usually not, we can have friends, we can do well at work. It could be in a certain area like, yeah, I'm a fucking excellent psychologist. I'm going to be full of myself and say that. I'm not being full of myself, but it's.
Well, wait a second. Let's reword that a little bit. Because I don't think that's a full of yourself comment. I think that's just healthy self-confidence. Like, you are a good psychologist, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a good therapist.
In society, if someone says, yeah, I'm really good at that, you're going to get people that'll say, that's a little narcissistic, isn't it?
But that's what's sad, because again, we're mixing up NPD, pathological, exploitive, abusive narcissism with healthy narcissism, which again, if you look at narcissism, it's the human ego. Okay. So we all have narcissistic traits. We have to, as part of the human ego. And that's part of the human characteristics. Like, we have to have that. But there's healthy, which is good self-confidence and self-love and self-care, versus I'm going to use you to meet my own needs and to get my own needs met, and to and abuse people and not have any empathy. I mean, I was really good. I had I'll just use this as an example. With my counseling business, but I had a network marketing business that I did that was around holistic health and oils. And I have a history in sales, right? So with that, and helping people and having that avenue when my kids were really young, it was easy to do from home. And didn't think I would be good at something like that, but it turned out that I was. And I built a business that went from 0 to 160 in 3 years and did really well. And I did really well. And it was the first time I actually felt really good about myself, that I was really able to accomplish something that attained a lot of money. And then people look up to you and they do the whole thing. I could see exactly where my confidence was rising, but I could see where it could go too far. And I watched people around me where it went from being super humble, grounded, to being beyond full of themselves or becoming quite narcissistic. This is where you oscillate on the spectrum, right? So, but at the same time, did I lose my empathy for people and care and my kindness and no, I didn't. I did become very confident within myself, but it was actually good because I grew up with a lot of childhood adversity and didn't have any self-confidence. So
we should have confidence. We
exactly.
should love ourselves.
Exactly. So again, a lot of people probably looked at me and thought,
she's a narcissist.
Narcissistic. My ex-husband would play on that. He'd be like, oh my God, you think you're so whatever. But then he'd pump me up and say, oh, why do you talk to those people that are below you? He was playing that card. I never once fell into that. But yeah, my confidence was there, right? And I felt good about myself, and I stopped giving a fuck about what other people thought. But I never lost my genuine humility to be kind and to be genuine and to be authentic and to love and care about other people. So again,
one thing that is really important when you say we're on a spectrum, the one thing I really want to clarify is NPD, narcissistic personality disorder itself, it's not a spectrum. You're not somewhat NPD. You're not a lot or a little. You are NPD or you're not NPD.
Not NPD. Well, that's what I mean. You're at the extreme end of the spectrum. Yeah.
Because I've had people say to me, well, narcissistic personality disorder, that's a spectrum. And, sometimes they're not so bad. And it's like, NPD is NPD is NPD is NPD. The spectrum is in traits and tendencies of I'm going to use the word typical everyday person who does not have a personality disorder.
Yeah, 100%.
And that is a big distinction. If you watch This Is Us, have you ever watched This Is Us? Where in like season 5, I think it is, might be, I think it's season 5, Randall, one of the characters says, can I say something obnoxious? And to his mom, and he goes, yeah. And he's a councilman. He goes, if he runs for Senate, he goes, Mom, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. If I run, I'm gonna win. I know I will. But he's not being narcissistic. He's being a little narcissistic, but he's not a narcissist.
No, he's again the ego, right? And the sort of like over exaggerated self-confidence, right? That I'm gonna win and I believe in myself that I can, it does not exemplify or represent NPD.
Right. So that is really important when we talk about NPD and narcissist. Unless we clarify, we're not talking about NPD narcissist. We are talking about NPD narcissist. Does that make sense? Figure that we're talking about NPD whenever we say narcissist, unless we tell you otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. We're talking always about the personality disorder and not people who have simply traits or have a very inflated sense of self that could be, again,
just ego driven.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to be doing, I have probably a good 50, if not more questions that I've been asked throughout the years that I've kept. So we're going to answer some of these on podcasts. And if you send us some, we will try to answer them on podcasts. So tonight, the first one we're going to answer, we're going to see how far we get as far as answering more or not is, and I love this one because I get asked this all the time and I've done a lot of videos on this. Why did I ignore the signs that he was a narcissist and get in a relationship with him anyways? Now, the he and him was already written. So this doesn't matter whether it's a she or a he.
We can play with guys. It's not gender specific. Okay.
Right. So I am not making it gender specific. That was the question that I was asked. So why did I ignore the signs that he was a narcissist and get into a relationship with him anyways? And this is something that I think is really, really important. And you can elaborate on this or go in a different direction. That is fine. But the first thing I want to say about this is hindsight is 2020. And we can look back when we leave a relationship and say, why did I miss that? Why didn't I see that? Why did I continue to let that happen? Because hindsight's 2020. And we are not in the middle of it with all the other context that was going on. We are looking at it in a vacuum. Like, oh my God, he told me that one night. Why didn't it hit? Well, because when he was telling you that, he was telling you all sorts of other things too. That made you not pay attention necessarily to that red flag. So yes, we were ignoring it, but it also wasn't being waved in our faces. When we look back on a relationship, to us, it was being waved in our face in hindsight.
Well, because we know way more about the person and the mask completely falls later on with narcissists, right? You're not meeting the person, you're meeting the representative. They're actors. They're the best actors. And I mean, the more charming they are, the more that would be a red flag to people that have experienced stuff like this. And there's lots of things that we can touch on in regards to how you grew up and different types of adversity that you're more prone. But you basically what Dr. Larman is saying, and it's a really good point, is that like a vacuum, it's in the context and you might miss a few things and you might think that, and then why do we downplay it? Okay, I saw this thing, but because this was happening and it wasn't so in your face. This is what makes it so complicated. And you also, I think instinctually human beings in general, oh my God, my dog's going to start barking. I'm so sorry. I'm going to go open my door. Sorry, people. Instinctually as human beings, we're born trusting. We're born good. We're born, or at least I like to believe that.
I like to think that
as a psychopath, we're born instinctually good and inherently good. And we want to believe the best in people. So, you kind of downplay it, or at least I have. I can say that in my own personal experience. And because you don't want to believe the worst in people. You want to believe that they're good and that maybe you can easily second guess yourself and think, well, and like she's saying, it depends on the context. Unless somebody's verbally berating you and being so overtly awful, I mean, then
you don't do that in the beginning.
I don't do that in the beginning. I had one date I went on after my ex and I split up. And the guy had too much to drink and he started calling me names. And I was like, bye. I mean, really, it was so in my face. And I'd only gone out with him once. And I'm like, are you for real? Like, what the fuck? Excuse my French. And I was out the door because it was like, yeah, no, dude. And oh, can you give me a second chance? I'm sorry. I'm like, yeah, no. See ya. But typically narcissists, they're smarter than that. They're not going to do that.
What they're going to do is when you go out on a date with them, a couple things. These are just examples. Okay. They may be 15 minutes late to your date. I had to stop and get gas. There was traffic. Now, most of us, that's a pretty normal thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've been late before.
Mm-hmm.
That's a control thing for them, but we don't know that. We don't know that because they're testing you by doing that. And I don't know if you go back to your very first date. I go back to my very first date with my ex, and we had talked about it because we worked together. So I remember seeing him. He was going to take Wednesday off because that was my day off at the time. And we talked about it. We talked on the phone. He said he took it off. Tuesday, I saw him and I said, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. And he's like, what's tomorrow? I'm like, what's tomorrow? We're going out. We talked about it last night. And he's like, oh, yeah. You're right. I was thinking of some, I didn't realize what you were talking about. Now, looking back, that's a red flag. That was a red flag. Now, any other person, that doesn't mean he's an NPD.
No.
At all. But
I mean, people can make mistakes, right? Or things can actually genuinely come up. But let's just put it this way. Go back in history and socioeconomically or culturally where men had to really put on their best their best foot forward with women. If you showed up 50 minutes on a date back in 1952, she'd never talk to you again. That's just the way it was.
Yeah.
You know, we as a society are becoming very, and again, not gender specific, I'm using that as an example, but, you know, based on biology too, men are the pursuers, women are the ones that have to kind of, you know, weed out who's good and who's bad. So if you're going to be 15 minutes late, well, there wouldn't be a really good excuse for that back in the day. Now, everybody can come up with these excuses and we're supposed to just be so forgiving, right?
Now, also, they bring you flowers. Now, here's the thing, and this is going to sound kind of weird, but it's like they got you a rose, a couple roses, not red ones, but some roses, but they have thorns in them on purpose because everything an NPD does tells you who they are. There is a reason for it. But initially, we don't think that. We just put them in a vase and that's cool. So that's what I look at too, is when they hand you a bouquet of flowers. So when you, and I'm not talking about literally and figuratively, they're handing you a bouquet of flowers. And, oh, there was thorns in them. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. They're still beautiful. Those thorns are the red flags.
Yeah.
Looking at all the pretty, they didn't give us rotten flowers. They gave us beautiful flowers to hide the freaking thorns that they had in there on purpose.
I'm going to give you another red flag that I ran into, okay? That I knew that I was questioning going, this is weird. On date number 3 with my last relationship, and I'll be transparent, we were a physical sort of right out of the gate, not on the first date. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, date number 3 is the physical date, but
yeah, well, it was
supposedly
that. But I would have been married to a deadbeat for like literally 13 years that didn't touch me. So, so I, and I didn't have any expectations out of this, right? It was just a, you know, decent looking hookup. Both of our daughters were on the spectrum. We obviously had some physical chemistry, but on date number 3, I said to him, okay, listen, I don't know you very well. Really, this is date number 3. I like you, but if you're dating other people, that's cool. I'm not going to continue to be physical with you because I don't want to be sleeping with everybody else in the city either. Right. Like I have some sort of, you know, some people that's fine. That's great, but not for me. He goes, no, that's totally fine. Yeah, no, yeah. Like yeah, that's cool. He's like, I'm not seeing or talking to anybody. If you're not, I said, nope, I do one at a time. I don't do multiple. And again, no disrespect to people that do, but that was just a boundary that I had.
Mhm.
And he agreed to it. Right after that, he followed up with, "Hey, what are you doing on the weekend or like coming up in a couple days?" And I said, "I don't know." He's like, "Oh, it's my daughter's birthday and I have to go to Boston Pizza. Do you want to come with me?" And right away I went, "You want me to meet your daughter? Your kids? Like we're on date number 3 and you're asking me to come and meet your children." And he's like, "Well, yeah, I'm just, like, do you want to come with me?" And I thought, and because I have children as well, I just said, "I don't know if that's really appropriate and fair to your kids that don't know me. And then I show up to her birthday party. Like that would be putting her in that would make her really uncomfortable, I think." And he goes, "Oh, well, I'm just so sick of showing up to these things alone."
Wow.
And right away, my mother spidey senses went up and I thought, but when I pointed it out to him and he goes, "Oh yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, but had I said yes, he didn't see anything wrong with it.
But see, looking back, you now know what he is and who he is.
Yeah,
But at
100%.
that point in time, it could just be someone who's just
Oblivious.
oblivious. Yeah.
That's what I mean. But again, but I was caught in that sort of that ambiguous state of being like, that's not normal or right. And if this guy had any, you know, clue about his daughters or making sure that his children feel comfortable, why would he bring some random chick he just met? Even though we just said that, okay, I'm not talking to anybody else, and you're not talking, that you want to introduce me to your children without meeting them first. Like if I'd met them first and then I go to their birthday party, fine, but just to blindside them at their birthday party just because you don't want to be alone, that's all about you. And I had that, but I brushed it off.
Mhm.
And then I find out 6 months later, I was not the only person he was seeing or talking to or sleeping with. He
But
lied.
here's the thing, that in that time frame is like scratch your head, but it isn't.
Yeah,
They're not guns ablazing NPD symptoms.
exactly.
They're
Not
not.
guns a blazing. That's right there. Not guns a blazing. He's
And they will tell you, like my ex would say, when we were first talking, we would be on the phone for hours talking, and then he would go, because there was working in a prison, there is a reputation when you get there of the officers are only want to sleep with doctors. It's like a bingo card of how many doctors that they can sleep with. And so you hear about it, you hear disgusting things, this guy, oh my God, he's like shotgun dating and all that. So when I met my ex, I hadn't heard anything negative about him.
right.
Like that was rare. And I said to him, wow, dude, I haven't heard anything. He goes, oh no. He goes, I'm a piece of shit. I'm like, oh my God, no, you're not. You're like the nicest guy.
Covert manipulation. Playing
Right there, they're telling you, but they're not saying it in a, I'm doing something shitty to you as I'm telling you I'm a piece of shit. No, they're telling it to you as they're telling you about their life and you're getting to know them and all of that. And when they just say, yeah, I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah, they're deliberately playing on your empathy and sympathy.
Yeah.
Then
But my birthday, the first year that we were going out, he had to be with his kids that weekend. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, it wasn't his kids he was with. But anyways. And then he said, but I'm going to come down for your birthday. We're going to do this, and this. And we had only been dating for a couple months. And then he calls me that day. He's like, I'm not coming down. My daughter wants me to stay with her. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but we had plans. And he goes, you really want me to tell my daughter that I don't see on a regular basis because I don't have custody of her? You really want me to tell her, no, I'm going to go to your birthday? His daughter was like, I don't know, she's a year younger than my son. So at the time she was like 5. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, okay. So I was it was my fault. It was my fault for saying, wow, we made plans.
but you didn't see this as a red flag though. necessarily.
No, because it's like, okay, what a good dad, wants to stay with his daughter, doesn't want to, hurt his daughter by saying, no, daddy's got to leave and I'll see you in 2 weekends or whatever. Now that I know that was all a bunch of bullshit lie and he was with another woman.
Mm-hmm.
so, but again, we don't go into this thinking they're probably lying to me and sleeping with other people and on and on and on. We go into it thinking, for example, wow, this is a guy who, okay, I get it. You've only known me for a couple months. Your daughter doesn't want you to leave.
And he's putting his daughter first, which is what he typically should do. And as mothers, we get that. We're not ever going to try to compete with children. But you again, the bigger picture is that there's got to be some equal playing field here. Putting your kids first to a certain extent, but your partner is important, right? You've got to make, and the effort has to be there, or
But
there
it's
has to
only
be a
been a
makeup.
couple months. It was only a couple months.
Doesn't
So
matter. It's your birthday. Your birthday's a big day, right? So again, but how do we? Okay, so how do we in those moments
know the difference.
distinguish or make the decision and be like, is this a red flag or am I just being selfish?
And
How do
I'm
we
so
call
glad
it?
you use that word because I have to tell you another one. He was coming down for my birthday the following year. And apparently halfway here, he called me up and he goes, I can't come. He goes, my son in another city, living with mom. My son was an offender bender. They called me while I was on the freeway and I'm so upset. I'm so upset. And I'm like, well, you're halfway here. And he goes, I said, there's nothing you can do. You may as well finish your drive here because he's like an hour away. Finish your drive here and they can call you and stuff. He's like, oh my God, all I can think about is my son right now. And you want me to come there for your birthday? How selfish can you be? And I was so upset, but I went out with my son and his babysitter because his babysitter came because I thought I was going out. And we went out somewhere to shopping. And I'm like, in the parking lot, we were getting out of the car. God, I remember this so well. And I'm like, wow. So he can't even take his phone calls from the insurance company and the rest of the family while he's with me. And then I stopped and I'm like, oh my God, I am selfish. Oh my God, I'm doing exactly what he said I was doing. I'm being so selfish and making this all about me.
So he was gaslighting you, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. When they're telling us this shit and giving us these signs, hindsight, we know they were gaslighting us. Hindsight, we
But
know
in the
they were
moment,
fucking us. But in that moment,
moment,
we don't know this yet.
but okay, we don't, or do we? And we're just not seeing it for what it really is. Are we distorting reality? I mean, they're
Oh,
distorting reality to gaslight you, but are we again? So why, as human beings, do we do this? Why? And I mean, we haven't even gotten into the adversity and and past and different things where you deliberately ignore red flags because you think you can change them, or that you know that they're there and you're just purposely ignoring them. Right? We haven't even touched on that yet, but why do we distort the reality of the situation?
my response, my answer would be partly because they're so good and they're throwing out these little breadcrumbs. When you first meet them, they're listening to know what it is that you want, that you need, so that they can provide that to reel you in. They start providing that. And so they're throwing these breadcrumbs. And then at the same time, they're throwing in this gaslighting and mind fucking stuff more and more and more. After they think they've kind of got you to the point of, this is a great person. Got a little, not too good to be true. Got a little faults. That's one of their little faults, out of a lot of good. So they're going to throw in a little, because they can't be too perfect. And intermittent reinforcement is what is the most addicting thing.
Well, that's what causes the trauma bond for you to stay and ignore all the red flags that continue
So
to
they're
happen.
putting those out there a little bit and telling you how horrible they are as they're putting out, you oh my God, when I am with you, I am just like, you light up the room. You bring out the best in me.
Mhm.
And it's like hearing that from somebody isn't like, you're so full of shit. Now we'll say that. But
Mhm.
at the time, we're just like, again, it goes back to our past and what we've been through and all of that. But we kind of go, wow, that's okay. And
Mm.
so then at the same time that they're gaslighting and mind fucking us, we're like, but wait, why would they lie to me when they say I'm so good for them?
Mm.
So it's like we want to not believe them, but we don't want to not believe it. We want to believe
So
them.
we want to believe them. That's what I'm
Right.
saying about us all seeing people as inherently good. I think that when you are an honest, neurotypical or healthier person, well, I shouldn't say neurotypical or healthier. If you've had trauma, then you're obviously your boundaries are sometimes in some cases non-existent. And then you just let people, or you don't even recognize that you're being abused, or you don't recognize
It's your
narcissism.
comfort zone, sadly.
It is your comfort zone. And I can say that for myself, from my own situation. But as I've gotten older and then recognizing, right, they'll put on this big mask. This last guy, an actor, saying he's humble and he does it because he loves the art and he loves the whatever. And I'm thinking, and he seemed quiet and humble and whatever until I started hanging out with him a lot more. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, when my buddies and I go to Cactus Club. It's a restaurant here. And that's what they called it. And they get, oh, we don't pay for anything because all the girls buy us drinks because they're, they are always sitting on us. This insidious way of trying to make me jealous or trying to make me feel inferior, right? And I thought,
It's
he's
done like this though.
bragging.
It's not
Yeah,
done
it is.
like
It's
this.
not, well, in
Like
his case,
this.
in that way, I was just like, are you really bragging about being hit on right now? I'm like, who? Ew, like, okay, I did that at 19, not fucking 44 or
But
42 or
he's not doing it like, yeah, we go to the titty club and they all love us. He's doing it like, yeah, it's no big deal. Like modestly
yeah, to
on
some, well,
purpose.
if that can even be modest, it's not really a modest thing to say. And then I think another one was when we were away and I'm running up to go check on his daughter because he didn't know where she was. He took me away to go meet his family or his aunt and uncle. And and it's the summer, I'm in my bathing suit. And he goes, "Run, saddlebags, run." And I stopped dead in my tracks. And I turned, and his mom's sitting right there. And I turned around and I looked at him and I'm like, did you just say that out loud? And he's like, it's a quote from a movie. I'm like, yeah, okay, fucked hard. I'm like, I know it's a quote from a movie. I'm not dumb, but what? And he's like, it's a joke. And right then I'm like, okay, why am I in this? I need to go. This is a blatant red flag, but I still didn't leave. And in our last one that we talked about in regards to being trauma bonded, it was that positive reinforcement that kept me.
Mhm. Because it's the addiction that we talked about. You get addicted to this intermittent, he's giving me what I need.
And it
Even
happens
though he's really
right
not.
away because it's the love bombing phase. So again,
Yes.
in the beginning, it's the idolization phase of narcissistic abuse. This is how it works. The abuse cycle is love bomb, idolize, devalue, discard. Hoover, love bomb, idolize, devalue, discard. And it's that cycle. And if I paid attention, he love bombed the shit out of me in like beautiful, stunning, gorgeous, like every morning, good morning. Um, whatever is, and that's sort of my love language because I didn't get that. He knew all of the things to say and overly charming. And then seemed daughter, good, whatever. But then all of a sudden these other things started slipping in there like it's a joke from a movie. I'm like, yeah, it's not funny. And
Because
then
one of the things I do, the way that you're saying this, I want to say is like the rat ratio. In the beginning, it's like 20 good,
yeah,
I'm not good. And
yes,
I'm 18, 2,
yes,
14, 6.
six.
No, it's like, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
like,
But then you're already hooked. They've got their hooks
yeah.
into you. And then they do manipulate, gaslight, blame shift, Darvo, and then you're screwed. But it's these red flags in the beginning. Why I knew they were there. Why did I ignore them? So let's go a little deeper with this. Let's
Well,
look at adversity.
I talk to a lot of clients right now who have been in bad, traumatic relationships, parent or romantic or whatever. And now they're dating And it's like, oh my gosh, is that a red flag? But the thing is, it's not, it's a gray flag. If it only happens once, it's fine. Pay attention though. If it happens one more time, that's not. Then it starts to be a red flag. Because the thing is, things start out with gray flags. Again, this goes back to our past history. But let's say somebody just going out on a date. Again, someone 15 minutes late, not a big deal. The next time, they're only 10 minutes late. Then they come on time. Then they come a half hour late.
Mm.
You know? So you're like, wait a minute. So now it's a red flag, but now you're already hooked. So there are usually a lot of times gray flags. And by the time they turn to red, we are so fucking hooked. Unfortunately.
And you don't need to have abuse or childhood adversity, because Jodi, you said several times that you didn't have any of that, but you and I are very different. I had a very borderline narcissistic mother and a very distant father, and then I was bullied when I grew up. So I mean,
I was bullied.
well, okay, so then you did have childhood trauma then, because that is trauma in itself. So when you again, and you know, when we sort of have this as our past and condition, and want to be accepted and want to be loved and want to be cared about, if there's been any bullying or any abuse, whether it's from peers or whether it's from parenting, it doesn't really matter. It still creates a little bit of a dynamic. My puppy needs to say hi. She's like, hello, everybody. Yeah, she's like, pay attention to me, Mom. It's been raining here all day, and we didn't go out for a ton of time because she doesn't like the rain. Anyways, but in this case, I knew this guy was not good after the first few comments. Like, there was that. And then there was, we get back into town and he's out with his friends and we're getting ready to go out. And he's like, oh, I was telling the boys that I'm bringing the dino back later. I said, sorry. He's like, oh, any chicks that we date that are over 35, we call them a dino. I'm like, in like Dinobot? He's like, yeah, Dinobots. And he's laughing. And I said, you ever fucking call me that again? There's the door. And he goes, whoa, it's a joke. And I'm like, it's not funny. Women don't like, or mature women for that matter, don't like being called a Dinobot. I'm a year younger than you. He's like, well, that's what's so funny is like, I'm older than you. So why are you taking it seriously? Again, the gaslighting. You already started.
But depending on your past, and I've said this before on podcasts before, I typically hear some version of, but he doesn't hit me, so it's not as bad.
Yeah, no, I knew it was degrading and not good. And in that moment, it was like I was already in that ambiguous state of, I need to ditch this guy. He's not good for me, but I would rather not be alone because of.
But that's what I mean. Like, if my past was so bad and I suffered through so much trauma, and this, on a scale of 1 to 10, that was an 11. This is only an 8.
Oh yeah, no, way less. Like, if I look at my history and the bullying I went through from the day I started school until the day I graduated. Sorry, people. She's loud.
Even if this is a 6, that's even more of a reason to stay. This is only a 6. That's a big reason. I hear it sadly, and I'm so glad you brought this up because it just popped into my head. I have heard some version, and it might not be that strong of, well, they don't hit me at least, but some version of why, after a really traumatic or toxic childhood or toxic relationship, this next one, it's not as bad.
Exactly. It's not as bad. And he's not about money, and he's not about this like my ex. And then you start justifying and why you're staying. And then you start, and this is again, when this bond it becomes cemented, you start justifying and you're like, well, I've warned him once. If he does it again, I'm out the door. Right? Didn't call me that again. He learned.
He did other things.
And right, but he didn't call me that. So again, you start, and then you just start realizing that it's just an excuse. Oh, the next time he does this, then I'll be gone. But then they do other things. And you're right. On a scale of 1 to, if you're going to go based on 1 to 10, that was like, I'd say probably a 3.5 compared to what I was used to in my past life.
So it was tolerable.
it's anything's tolerable when you've come from a lot of adversity,
Yeah.
almost because that's what you're used to, your system. And I think, again, with my line of work and Jodi, with your line of work, we fix people. Our job is to help fix people, right? And
And they
that's the
tell us
shittiest
that we're
thing is
so
because,
good for
and
them.
we're so good for them. And they said that, oh, but you're so good for me. I was like, yeah, I'm like your mother. I'm a grown up. I'm a mature person and you're not. But, maybe if I tell them and warn them, don't call me that again, demand the respect, I will somehow eliminate the womanizing and the misogyny right out of them.
And
And
not
then
only
they
that,
turn into a project.
you told him not to do it,
Mhm.
and he didn't. He
Mhm.
did something else. But
Something else.
look, I told him, he listened to me.
Right?
Even though
Yeah.
we know, but you
I'm
also said,
establishing a boundary. Don't do it again. Instead of going, actually, you're immature and stupid, and I can see right through you, and I'm going to
and
leave.
you're still, the boundaries, you're still violating them because yes, you didn't do X, but you did X plus one.
Mm-hmm.
Thing only worse.
100%. So what are some other reasons that we do this? Again, so you've got childhood adversity, you've got, again, in the context of everything, it's so subtle in the beginning because they're in the love bombing phase that you don't see it and you let it go. And it could be a gray flag versus a red, right? What are some other reasons why people ignore red flags?
Now I'm gonna say they're red flags going in, not the first date, second date, but kind of little later on. By the time we realize, part of it, because again, these are just things from what I hear professionally and what I've been through personally, right? Or for what, not just what I hear, but what I've done and worked on professionally and personally. Some of it is my family didn't like him in the first place. And now if I say something, oh my God, they're going to be like, told you so, told you so, told you so.
Oh,
Or the opposite. Everybody loves him,
and so
loves him.
yeah,
Now,
just so
how do
good.
I say
Mm-hmm.
that he does? Now, my husband was my best friend, my soulmate, my partner, my everything, and was not MPD. And my grandmother loved him. She loved me. We were two peas in a pod, but she literally said to me one day, if you guys get a divorce, I'm going to know it's your fault. What? She goes, because he can't do anything wrong. And I'm like, wow, okay. Well, we're not going to get a divorce, but he passed away. But again, there are families that are like, oh my God, they're so in love with the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And now if you turn around and say that they're doing something that's emotional, physical, or psychological, mental, not physical,
Not physical, just the mental, yeah.
how do you, I'm sure you took it the wrong way. I'm
Mhm.
sure you did something.
Now you're getting,
Sure you deserved it.
you're getting invalidated. Oh, hi, doggone computer. Hi.
So,
Yeah, it's fine.
it's like, I don't want to be embarrassed. And
Yep,
also, I'm going to be invalidated. So I don't say anything. So that's
yep,
another reason.
yep.
And also, because I know I've said this, and
Mm-hmm.
you said something similar earlier,
Mm-hmm.
better than being alone
Yeah, it's better than being
than
alone.
nothing.
Better than nothing when you've been hurt before. And I was going to say, Jodi, not just your bullying when you were growing up, you lost your husband, you went through major grief.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that had an impact, like an impact. I bet you being with a narcissist, you'd suffered such
Yeah.
an extreme, worst pain you'll ever suffer, other than losing a child. It's pretty much on the same. It's on par, right?
Mhm.
So going through that trauma and that grief of losing your husband, you're so much more susceptible to toxic, abusive people.
I waited 8 years to get into a relationship. And when I met him, told him about my husband, not right, it was throughout the getting to know each other. And I remember saying, my husband was my rock,
Mm-hmm.
my emotional rock.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he couldn't do anything, just the fact that he was there for me to support me made it okay. And he said to me, I want to be your rock someday.
So right away he feels threatened by your husband, right? And then they're playing you. And that's the shittiest thing is just that you couldn't even be, they do. You tell them and you're vulnerable with them on the most insane things, and then they play you and then they tell you everything you want to hear. And like I said, I think it's that natural, um, we're born with that innate wanting to believe that everybody's good and not evil.
Yeah.
And that you just want to believe. say now, but I mean, for most of my life, blindly trusted people, even though I'd been hurt so many times because I didn't want to believe that the human race could be so evil and so bad and so awful. I refuse to believe that, because that's even more painful, accepting that there's such evil in the world or toxic people. So always give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But I think part of that was also just because there's part that you want to be accepted and belong.
Yeah.
And so you just want to believe the best in people.
So is there anything I've left out on why people ignore the red flags?
I don't think so. I think we've kind of covered most of it. Again, I think it's based on the individual, but I mean, here's something I will say. Okay, so moving forward, how can you detect red flags in people? Okay, so why did I ignore the red flags? But how do you detect that you're in a relationship or you're entering into something that has things that are red flags that you're not seeing as red flags? Because as people, we all want to belong, we want to be accepted, we want to be loved. That's the human condition and experience. We all want that. That's part of like basic human psychology, is that we're all connected. We want to belong. Dr. Brene Brown talks about it. Shame, belong, accepted. There's a difference between being something about being belonging and accepted. And I can't remember exactly what it is, but the point I'm trying to make is that we all want that. So again, we blindly trust in ways because we want to believe that people are inherently good. But to those who don't know or who have been in narcissistic relationships before that got blindsided, that thought, oh, I met my Prince Charming, I met my soulmate, I met my whatever within 3 days, that is number one red flag. If they are love bombing you and they were telling you that they've never met anybody like you, and that they've never had a connection like this with anyone else, and that you're the most amazing, beautiful, right out of the gate, that is red flag number one. Fucking run. Because here's the thing, nobody can love you and fall in love with you. There's no, this whole love at first sight, it's such bullshit. A healthy person will not say these things to you. It's impossible to fall in love with somebody that fast. Infatuation, fine, but there's a difference between infatuation and true, real, healthy love and connection with somebody. There's 3 types of love, and I was listening to this by a psychologist not too long ago. You've got the lust, which is the infatuation. You've got the romantic love, and then you have the attachment. So again, sorry guys, my dog is super annoying. It's like psycho. It's the witching hour. Again, in the beginning, what connects humans is this lust. It's this primal attraction to a person, right? You can have that. It's there. And that is how we wind up procreating. It has to be there in order for you to connect with a person. That's number one, right? The second is this romantic love that comes later, where it's like, why am I picking this person when I've got a bar full of people that I could go home with any one of them and get my needs met? But why am I glued to that one over there? Why do I keep going back to that one? There's something deeper there. And then you can move into more of this romantic love. I want to specifically date this person. After the honeymoon phase wears off, which it does with everyone, you're left with what it should be a solid attachment. But this is where people mistake and think, oh, I don't love the person anymore, because they've lost that lust and they've lost a lot of their romantic love. Yes,
and love. You can go in and out of love.
Yes.
And then, but like my husband and I used to look at him sometimes and go, damn, I'm really loving you right now. Yeah. Or he would come up to me and he's like, I just love you so much. Now we always love each other. There's this baseline love.
Yeah. Right.
There were times of that lust coming up. I'm so in love with you right now. Yeah.
Yes. But that doesn't happen on date number 3. You don't meet your soulmate on date number 1. It's an infatuation. You're lusting, and with a narcissist, they're grooming you. This is what they do. They're trying to get their hook. So and they're mirroring back everything about you. They're studying you.
That's when they listen.
This is again the only time with your relationship. And I've been there. I didn't have that with my husband. I had that with a guy before my husband, and broke me so badly that I met a guy, my next, which was with my husband. I didn't have really any connection. It was just, he can't hurt me. I know I can't attach to him that way. And then that's when turned out he was narcissistic and sociopathic anyway. But it still wasn't that level of insane soulmate, like I'll die without you connection. The last guy, yeah, it was awful. He was very abusive and very and physically abusive. And then you move on, and then I go back to, I'm never going to not be vulnerable like that again. I'm going to take the risk because I'm older and I've learned, and I want to find something that's meaningful, and met a person and had this soulmate connection with in 3 dates. And I was like, I've never felt this intense about anybody. Still didn't know enough about narcissism. And boom, 3 months. And then he fucking dropped me like a hot potato.
Mhm.
Right. He was just using me to get back to his ex-wife. And he played me, and he learned, and he, all the things. And I thought, oh, we're 40. We're not going to run into the, like, no. Right. Again.
How do you know the
Yeah.
difference?
Yeah.
First and foremost, go to therapy. Please. I cannot stress that enough. Get healthy to the point of almost, I'm being a little facetious here, but almost a narcissistic self-love. Learn to know your worth
No,
and
yeah,
love
not
yourself.
narcissistic self-love,
And I
but
said,
love
I'm
yourself
I'm
so,
being
yeah,
facetious
love
when I
yourself
say
so
that.
much that you're
That
like,
you
fuck everybody
know
else. I'm
your
worth it. I'm
worth.
going to therapy. Know your worth. It's the only thing that's going to break a trauma bond. I will tell you, in the moments when I just did this not too long ago, and I, like I said, work with people, do this all the time, and it's just such a mind fuck, is choosing you,
Mhm.
finally choosing you, holding on to that shred
You-
of dignity that's
and
left.
another thing, when you're in therapy also, because this is what I do with my clients, they will come to me and go, okay, well, this happened over the weekend. And it's like, okay, tell me not just what happened, but why it happened. Like when you're in the moment that you're thinking this or feeling, I want you to write it down. Because when
Mhm.
you write it down, that's going to be the honest part.
Mm.
And then you know why you did what you did.
Yeah, you've got, because you won't remember, again, with narcissistic abuse and the cognitive dissonance and the gaslighting that will cause brain fog and like lack of executive function from your prefrontal cortex. Like you literally and the abuse amnesia. I can't even stress the abuse amnesia. The things that I wrote down throughout my last relationship constantly, because I would forget. I would forget, and I still to this point can probably write things down and be like, holy shit, that happened. I totally forgot about that. And I forgot about that. And I forgot about that. And I forgot about that. And you have to write it down, right? Again, this comes back from childhood stuff too, where when you are with a caregiver, and I'm just going to use myself as an example, that is toxic, you still have to attach to that parent. So your brain is trained and wired to forget the abuse in order to survive the reliance on that parent. And that goes to, based on attachment theory.
That's where
And
disassociation comes
distancing
from
comes from,
too.
oh, I disassociate, yeah, we disassociate, right? So you disassociate in this relationship. You're so used to checking out that you literally have to write everything down or you will forget. So another thing that in the beginning of a relationship to avoid, like that you'll know is a red flag, they are rushing everything. They want in a relationship, they want to marry you, they want to move in together, then they want to marry you, then they want to get you pregnant. Boy, oh boy.
Can I just name a couple of subtle things
Yeah,
that people
yeah.
don't catch? When
Okay.
you're in a relationship, you may not necessarily see this. So talk to your friends. And here's a really, really big thing. If you're not talking to your friends, why? Now,
Huge, huge.
if your new significant other is not interested in meeting your friends, if your new significant other tells you, go ahead, go out with your friends tonight, but yet they're constantly texting you,
Hmm.
constantly. Hey, what's up? How you doing? You guys having a good time? What's going on? Where are you at? They seem sweet, don't they? They really care. They really no, they're fucking controlling you. So
Yeah.
that you have to answer them and not interact with your friends.
And they do
But
it in
you're
such a
not.
covert way. This is covert manipulation and
Yes.
control. And also if you find yourself not talking to your friends, or you're not talking to your family as much, or they seem to have a problem with everybody, all of a sudden subtly, they're like, I don't know if I like your friend. She seems kind of like, I don't trust her. She's a bit
Yeah.
slutty. Like, I don't know. Like, why are you friends with her? And then all of a sudden you're now going to be worried to go out with your friend because she garners some sort of attention that they don't want you to garner. Again, control.
I see this and I want to sometimes shake people. Don't you see this? But when they come off, and I'm not saying this is always a red flag, Okay. But if you've been in a really toxic relationship and now you have someone that is so caring, super caring about everything, reels you in, is so concerned about you. However, again, when was the last time you went out with your friends now? They occupy all of your time, all of your time. And so it doesn't seem like they're keeping you from your friends. They're not telling you can't see your friends.
Yep.
They have made plans for you for every single weekend or whatever. And then when they don't have plans for you, they're constantly calling you, talking to you, occupying your time. When they make plans, and believe me, I see this on a regular basis, and we're coming to the end here, but I have to say this. If you are in this relationship where the guy or the girl seems really, really nice, and it's like, no, I don't go out with my friends, but we have so much fun. They don't care if I go out, but I mean, I don't need to go out because I'm always doing something with them. You don't see that? They buy you things, not necessarily the things you're wanting. Like you may say, oh my God, I love this tumbler. And they'll buy you a tumbler that they picked out, not that you picked out.
Oh yeah, and I went through that with my ex-husband.
You know, I'm gonna get you this one. Oh my God, it's so nice. I'm sorry, is it though?
Yeah, no, it's nothing that you want. They don't care. It's about them.
It's about them. So if they're giving you gifts, but it's not gifts that like I have a friend who in her relationship, he bought her, and I'm not saying I'm just using this as an example. Okay. So I'm not saying that he is or isn't or whatever. I'm just he bought her pants, some jeans and my friend and I were like, those are the same jeans that he's wearing. They're like unisex jeans. He bought her the same jeans. Now, I'm not saying, I'm just using that as an example of if somebody buys you something that it's like, not necessarily your style, but you look so good in it.
So yeah, no, that's classic. Yeah, it's brutal. It's always about them.
It doesn't seem controlling though, because you were in a relationship that was controlling. That was very overtly controlling.
Right. Again, unless you've been overtly abused, covert abuse is going to be really hard to detect.
Yes.
So hard to detect. Most narcissists are covert manipulators.
And even if you've been, especially if you've been overtly abused.
Yep.
Yeah. But wait a minute. I said I'm going to make this up again. I love Disney stuff. And I'm a Tinkerbell. I have Tinkerbell tattoo.
Oh my God, me too. I love Tinkerbell. She's my favorite.
I am Tinkerbell Grumpy. I have a Tinkerbell Grumpy tattoo because I'm grumpy, and Tinkerbell, she's actually a bitch and has an attitude.
She totally does. The red face. So, Peter Pan and Wendy.
Yeah. So let's just say I love Disney. I love Grumpy and I love Peter Pan. But I'm with this guy and he buys me a Daisy Duck something. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
It's not what you want. And they know it. They didn't just use a lot of thought and say, oh my God, they purposely did not get you what you wanted.
Oh, I know that was my ex-husband. He was brutal that way. He bought running stuff because he loved running. He wanted me to be a runner. That was my first Christmas with him.
And oh my God, he got you expensive running shoes.
And then he's like, oh, you should be grateful. It's a gift. I'm like, but I don't like any of this stuff. Like, you didn't even take into consideration the things that I like. It's all about what you want.
You said that because a lot of times, and again,
but then I was an ungrateful, selfish, greedy, spoiled bitch, right?
So now if somebody they're not keeping you from seeing your friends. You can see your friends whenever you want. We just never make plans with them.
Well, my recent relationship was like this. It was I can't go with my friends because you're jealous. And I'm like, no, you've cheated and you've lied and I don't trust you. And then as you go with your friends, I'm like, I rarely see them anymore because when I do, you make it seem like you're okay with it, but then you've got to somehow one up me. You're going to go with your friends more and I'm going to feel insecure about it. And it's like this game of power.
that's the thing. That's when you're already established. Now I'm talking about when you're in the relationship
In the beginning.
and you don't necessarily see it. See, you saw it. I'm talking about when they don't see it because they're masked in, we always go out, so there's no time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Yeah, of course. That's a way to
From
keep you
you,
away from your friends.
there's
So
no
it's
time.
subtle. Yeah, that's a subtle red flag that
He
you're
has made
keeping.
plans for us, or she has made plans for
They
us,
monopolize your time constantly. Yep.
and we always go out with their friends and family because they made the plans.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you make the plans to go with your friends and family? Oh, well, he's not going to be around that day, or she's not going to be around that day. It's like, really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Those are the kinds of things that when we're in the middle of it, it's done so covertly that
Mm-hmm.
we're not seeing it. But ask your friends, and they'll say to you, hey, I haven't seen you in 5 weeks. Invited you to a party.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we didn't think that he was invited too. Really? Why wouldn't he be invited?
Mm-hmm. Another one is finances. If you've got somebody that's wanting to pay for everything and you're quite capable of paying for a few things on your own, but they're all about paying for nope, you're not paying. Nope, I'm paying. Nope, I'm paying. Nope, I'm paying. And you think, oh my God, he wants to take it. Oh, this is so
No.
important. No, no, this is like, again, manipulation and they're grooming. And then when you do move in with them and they take over all the finances, you slowly lose your financial independence. This
Mhm.
is also a very subtle, covert manipulation or manipulative tactic. I make all the money, or I want you to stay home. And when you get pregnant, oh, it's okay. And this is how they garner all the control. But you may not see it that way because in the beginning, you think it's just pure romance or that they're just being so sweet and they want to take care of you.
And another thing, if you are independent and you have a home that you lived in with an ex before, I don't want to live in that home. You need to sell that home. We need to buy something that's not related to your ex.
Mhm. Well, I will say I would never want to live in a house that my ex, like if I was
Okay.
dating somebody, I would never want to live in and move into that house and be, but you don't move in with somebody right away. Okay. This is the
And
whole, you wait.
my husband, there's no way I'm going to sell my house. My husband and I lived here.
Hmm.
And I dated someone and I didn't even notice this at the time. And when I noticed it, I was like, oh, thank God we're not seeing each other. We stopped going. I went out with them just a couple of weeks. But I had a pillow that was our anniversary or our wedding invitation that somebody made. And one day I was cleaning up the living room and he had clumped it in a ball and shoved it in the corner of my couch. Because I was like, what the hell? And I pulled it out and I'm like, wow. And I was already not seeing him. But I was like, that's big reason why I'm not seeing him. My husband died. You're not in competition. But
No, that's different though. Your husband dying
right.
is not the same. Like I would be fine moving into a house where they passed away, but I'm talking about like,
But here's the thing in California, in the United States, but in California especially, this is not the time to buy or sell a house or to sell a house. Well, to try to buy another house. If you have a house, you keep your house. And if you
but
lived in that house and your
yeah.
ex is gone and
Mhm.
the new person comes in and wants you to move, they're not going to do anything. You need to move. I'm not going to live here.
Mm, okay, I think it really depends on the circumstances there because like I said, I I would not be comfortable moving into a place where that person cohabitated with their ex-partner. I think that's pretty
10
normal for
years
women.
before.
Not, I don't know, like 10, I again, cohabitating if they pass away is totally different than they had a dysfunctional relationship and then it broke up. I think your home is very my ex stepmom, my not my ex, sorry, my stepmom that just passed away did with my dad. Her and my dad got together after my mom and my dad split. My mom and my dad built that house together, and she says, "I'm sorry, I'm not living in that house you lived in with Sandy there. That's just I'm not comfortable doing that." And so they bought, and she was not anywhere close to being a narcissist. But again, they didn't move in together right away. I think that if you can always rent, you can always rent out a property if you don't want to sell it and then you start over fresh. But I think it's an energy thing. I know men don't attach this as much as women do. Women really struggle with um moving into a place where you're with somebody else's like ex energy. Like it's just, it doesn't feel.
But if it's been 10 years since the ex lived there,
I can say, okay, 10 years, fine. But I think if it's recent, right? Like, I think if it's like
okay.
10 years, that's okay. Like, Vicky and my dad didn't, like, they were dating not long after my mom and my dad split up. And so she just says, I'm not going to do that.
Oh,
I know when I was dating a guy that briefly, and he's like, would you ever move into this house? And I'm like, temporarily, yes, but I wouldn't want to stay here because like financially, I can't expect, like, if we did, it's just, it's your and your ex's house. Like you just, it just feels weird. Like you had kids here and you guys like, like had babies and you guys, this was your marital room. And it just was like, ooh, it's just sort of like a bad juju, right?
because my friend,
Like you're
she and
taking
her
over.
husband divorced, and then her new husband moved in when the time came. Years had
Mhm.
passed, but her new
I
husband.
think men, again, men don't, they don't connect, they compartmentalize and they don't attach emotionally to things. But I know women are far more emotional and there's an emotional attachment there. And this isn't uncommon from what I've heard from a lot of
Okay,
other people.
but here's another question though. If they expect you to move, you to buy a house, not them, you. I want you to sell your house and move.
No.
That's not fair. If we are going to buy something, that's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But they want you to move
Mm.
so they can feel comfortable eventually moving in.
Yeah. I think if you're in a healthy relationship and it really does come down to a comfort level of, I don't want to live in your ex's space that you guys shared a
Okay, then
house.
we should be looking for something.
Yeah. We together. Absolutely. Not you.
I should
Yeah.
not have to
Yes.
move
No. No.
to make you feel
You
comfortable in
feel
the house that
comfortable.
I am now living in.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's
That's
very
what I'm
true.
saying.
Yeah.
That's
No,
what I'm saying.
100%. And when it comes to real estate, it's not hard. If you're in a serious relationship, you don't have to sell a property. You can just go rent something with
That's
that person
something.
until you decide to buy something together and collaborate and do your thing.
Right.
But if somebody has these expectations of you need to do this and you need to do this really early
Right.
on, no, that's a red flag. So what you're saying, yeah, very much so. Like if that's your home that you're never going to sell, that was union, that's something that's so sentimental to you because he passed away. Nobody should expect you to sell that house or
But even if, let's say, I grew up in my house, and let's say my husband and I divorced. Now it has been enough time that if somebody were to come in and my house is totally redone anyways, but say, no, you need to move if I'm ever going to move in with you.
Mhm.
No, I think we can look for something
Yes,
together.
100%. That's different.
That's
Yes.
the
And
difference.
that's okay. That's
That's
the
what I'm
difference.
talking about is when
Yeah.
they say,
Mhm.
I will not move in here unless you move.
Mhm.
Not
Right.
we need
Mhm.
to move somewhere.
You need to move somewhere because yeah, no, 100%. But I do know that men don't attach emotionally to things like that, whereas women typically do. I know
I know
most of the
some
time.
men who've done that,
Oh,
who have,
probably. I'm
yeah,
just saying, generally speaking,
yeah.
from the people I've talked to, like my dad would have died in that house that him and my mom had together because he put so much work into it. He didn't care. But his new wife or new partner was like, that feels weird and yuck to me. Like that's just bad energy. We need to do something together, starting off as a couple together, new, not,
That's different. That's
yeah.
different than saying, if you ever want me to live with you, you
Mhm.
need to move out of
Mhm.
this place.
Yeah. And then expecting you to take on the financial
And
burden all on your
then
own and
exactly.
that's
And then
not.
it's like, okay, but now what happens if we don't work out? Or because there's no financial in it for them.
Mm-mm.
It's you. Again, it's a money thing too.
Mhm. What's mine is mine
We
and
are
what's yours
not
is
going to do
mine.
anything.
Yeah.
You are going to move, get another place, and then I will move in there with you.
Mhm.
Which, I mean, it's good if it's in your name because then you don't deal with
But
it.
that's it
But
right there.
that's
That's
a
a huge
totally
red
different
flag.
thing.
If somebody's wanting to not take on a financial like go half and half with you or part whatever, and the person's like, no, I'm going to take care of everything, and you don't need to do like, I mean, just be careful. You don't want to lose your independence. It's the first thing a narcissist will try to take from you is your
Yeah.
independence. They want you to become completely reliant on them, or they expect you to do all the work and they're reliant on you and there's no halfway or in between and you're
You
not
still
being
lose your
yourself.
independence that way because
You
you're
are
giving
still losing
to
your
them.
independence. Yeah, 100% because then now you're supporting them. Ew.
So if
That's
you are in a relationship and you want to know also the difference between a red flag and a gray flag, ask yourself too, am I still independent?
mm,
Do I still feel like I can do whatever I want, go wherever I want, all of that stuff? I'm not talking about fuck the relationship. I'm talking about if I said, hey, my friends want to meet tomorrow, we're going on a girls' weekend. Now, of course, we're going to talk about it. You're in a relationship. I wouldn't want my guy to just take off with the guys. We discuss it. But if it's I don't know that I want to tell him that or
mm,
her that,
mhm.
or, oh my God, it's just going to start a fight.
Yeah, no, you're in a toxic
Or,
union. You can't, if any of that stuff comes up, you know that you're in a toxic union for sure.
so if you cannot be your true and genuine you
Mm-hmm.
comfortably,
Yes,
ask yourself why.
100%. Sorry.
Now, relationships are give and takes, but we
Mm-hmm.
can still be who we are.
Yeah.
And there is church persona, concert persona, courtroom persona, friends at dinner persona. So we not change who we are. We change how we act, but we're still us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you feel like I can't be me
Mm-hmm.
in this relationship,
Mm-hmm. 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 But just be careful you don't get drawn in, and this is the last point because I know we're over time here, but you don't get caught up in the whole, in my last situation, he's like, you're trying to change me. I am who I am. He's an abuser. He was an abuser, a manipulator, a cheater, a fucking misogynist. But that's who I am, and you should just accept me for who I am. Yeah, no. That's a hard no.
be your true, genuine you, not with me.
Yeah, not with me.
Not with
Then go do that if that's who you really are. By the time we broke up, it literally was like, and I'm telling him, I'm like, you are a full-blown narcissist. Like, you meet all the criteria. And I told you, and he's like, I'm so sick of hearing that word. He's like, okay, I'm a narcissist. I don't even fucking care. They don't. They literally, and but I'm who I am. Yeah, no, you don't need to accept that. That's not the same thing as you being the victim of somebody taking away your individualism, your identity, your sense of self, your independence, all the rest of it, and you not being able to be authentically, genuinely who you are as a good, kind, compassionate, empathetic, loving, genuinely humble person, then you are not in a
healthy
healthy,
relationship.
no.
So we can go on and on and on. Now,
Whatever.
it's not a definitive, this is the answer. That's all there is. Because everything is, well, I hate to use absolutes, but things are so nuanced.
Mhm. Just look at the
So
speed in
understand
which things are happening. That's the biggest red flag I think we can warn people with
and
is
go to
therapy.
therapy. If you are in doubt, go to
Mhm.
therapy, talk about it with a therapist.
Mhm.
Because when you're talking about it with a totally unbiased person,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not your
You're
friend.
able to see
Yeah.
because they're objective and they can also know what healthy versus unhealthy looks like. If you've got unhealthy friends, I'm going to say it. I have a friend, love her. I love her to pieces, but she's got some unhealthy friends. So it's almost her norm. And I'm like, but that's not healthy. Again, you're not. And so for her to be able to see red flags and really she doesn't know. She was like sadomasochism. She's like, oh, it's kink. There's lots of people that do that. And I'm like, no, that's degrading and awful. And did you like it? No, it hurt. Of
No.
course it fucking hurt. Oh, I didn't recognize it as abuse.
But
Yikes.
I liked it. I
Yeah,
did it
right.
for
But
them.
again, there's so many factors, but it's the speed. And when you meet people, just know that love is not possible in 3 dates. Soulmate connections are not possible that quickly. You need to get to know somebody, and you don't really know how you're going to interact with a person really well until you have your first disagreement. So that's something to
Especially about what it's about, too.
of what it's
That's
about
really
too.
interesting.
So,
Oh.
yes, but if your intuition is kicking up and going, really do some deep digging and really do some self-reflection and what works, and don't ever sacrifice your self-worth and your
Ever,
dignity and your
ever.
self-respect for
Because as
any
much
type
as
of
I've said, it's better than nothing.
no, it's not. No, it is not. I am far better alone and happy alone. Yeah,
My
you do.
worst days without
Ever going
him
back to that.
are
Mhm.
better than my best days with him.
Oh, 120 fucking percent. So on that note, we will
I
end.
was just gonna say, I
If you guys have any questions or comments or want to, if there's anything that like, you know, there's another question you have that based on this podcast that we just did or leading into something else that you want to know about, please comment below. Like,
or
subscribe, do all the things.
WCWYCW1 at
Mhm.
Gmail.
Yeah.
WCWYCW1. So either comment
hmm
or you can email us
hmm
questions.
hmm
And just like she said, like, subscribe, click the bell, the notifications, and
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
We will see you in about 2 weeks.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.